need to manage people, you need to convince people, you need to make people follow your recommendation. So at that point, I would say also there you can lead without being a leader, but if you wanna have impact, you need to think about how can you manage.
Welcome to Leadership to Go. My name is Pari Namazie. I am an executive and leadership coach and the managing partner at EUNEPA. Join me as I explore leadership insights from all walks of life.
A very warm welcome to Monika Speckmaier. Monika, thank you for being with me on Leadership to Go. It's such an honor and a pleasure to welcome you.
Thank you, Pari. I'm happy that you asked me, and I'm very curious now what we will talk about in the next 30 minutes.
So Monika and I had a few minutes earlier, and we both decided to just go with the flow of things. So this is not a prepared in any way interview. We're just gonna go with the flow, which is lovely. So just a little background. Monika, I've known you for several years. I have had the privilege of seeing you grow as a leader throughout your career. It's been such an honor to see that. And you're, for me, one of the strongest leaders I've met. So I really admire and respect you very much for that. And, I know you've come with a very diverse background from multinationals, starting with, I think, Siemens and Nokia, now also with Giesecke+Devrient. And it's not only having a technical background, but a management and leadership background. But the first question I'd love to ask you is, when you were like a little kid, a 5-year-old kid, is that the path you saw for yourself, to be this powerhouse of a leader?
Honest answer, when I was 5 years old, I wanted to have, I was watching Olympic Games, dressage riding, and I wanted to have such a horse which is doing pirouettes and that stuff. And I had no clue and no idea on leadership or whatever. My parents, my father is a teacher and my mother is a nurse, so I even didn't have any touch points. I wanted to have a pony and I wanted to do to ride pirouettes with my horse. So with 5 years, that was my dream.
So how did the shift come from you? How did you get from this dream of a 5-year-old girl to where you are today? What shaped you?
Yeah, I think I always had some kind of intrinsic motivation in me to master tricky challenges, or to measure myself on things. So I did a lot of different sports, where also, of course, there you need this kind of motivation to push yourself to achieve goals and to do that. This connection with business, then when I did my A-levels, I thought, what should I do? And I absolutely was not sure. I needed someone to pay me during my studies. As for my parents, this wouldn't have been so easy. And then I decided, I wanted, or was very good in mathematics and physics, so I thought this I could study, but I didn't want to end up in a kind of R&D environment or so. And then I thought I sent some applications for a kind of dual study system. Siemens offered that, and BMW and a few others. So then I applied there. As I had no clue on computers and whatever, then I applied for business administration, because I thought this I will be able to do anyhow. But the master really was that I said, okay, I need to do something. I need to have someone paying my studies. And this is then how it went. And when I was at Siemens at this assessment center, they looked at at my marks from school, and then they said, they would offer me that opportunity, but they would strongly recommend to study computer science. And I said, guys, I can type a little bit in Word and that's it. I have no clue on computers. So not sure. But then they convinced me that this isn't a problem if you have a certain kind of logical understanding. So they convinced me. And then I said, okay, I will give it a try. And in the end, then, it was exactly as they said. So of course, I mean, for programming and whatever, it's, after 2 weeks at university, you immediately catch up. And and then I ended at Siemens, and I did a lot of different jobs during my time at university. So I was in the IT department, but then I moved to sales and also to more commercial area. And actually, for me, it was pretty clear that I'm the one who really wants to be where, let's say, the business is made. And actually, during that time, it started. I loved that environment there with the colleagues, and that really, we were doing offers until late in the night, but we nailed it, and we then got it, and we won it, and we fighted for it. And so, then out of that, this kind of, it started that I said, okay, this looks like I'm in the right environment, and this is something what I would like.
Yeah, and a lot from what you've said is I hear this sort of this drive in you and this resilience. It's a fighting spirit. Where does that come from?
Good question. I mean, this I would say I always had that. So most probably it's coming from my parents or whatever. So or perhaps how we were raised at home. But it was I had a very nice home. So I think this is most probably just in me. What also I have is, I would say, a pretty huge sense of justice. So this is very, very important for me, and I'm also more the one than really saying fighting for justice. When I have the feeling something is not as it should be, then actually this is giving extra motivation to me. But so far it was never a negative or a too negative thing.
And when you say justice, that's such a strong moral sense of responsibility. Is it justice for people whose voices are not heard? Is it how do you see justice? What's justice to you?
I mean, it's I would have, in my view, it's pretty broad. It's really in regards of people, also in regards of animals or whatever. So it's really sometimes I find it really sickening to see what's happening on that globe. And indeed, it is when I have the feeling that people are not treated properly, or that they are not heard, that whatever. And on the other hand, also, if I see that people really behave absolutely not as it's adequate, and then they are even praised for that, or at least there are also no consequences. So this is just one of the things which at least I always try to keep the balance, and indeed to fight if I have the feeling it's needed.
It's having the courage, it's having that, I guess, also the resilience, which I think you role model that very well. I wonder, Monika, to ask you, you through your career, I guess you've gone from technical and then into management and now into leadership. How do you see that shift as, in becoming a leader? What's different?
I would say not so much, because I started, of course, in a international global company doing huge, or I was commercially responsible for big infrastructure projects. So you have a lot of interfaces. And of course, I didn't have a management position, also not a leadership position. But if in such complex environment, you want to move things forward, you need to, you need to manage people. You need to convince people. You need to make people follow your recommendation. So at that point, I would say also there you can lead without being a leader, but if you wanna have impact, you need to think about how can you manage. What then, of course, in this path, if then you say you have people in your team, what of course then it's growing is the responsibility for that team. Of course, also then it's that you have a broader business responsibility, that you have more things you have to manage, more goals you have to achieve, and a bigger team and a bigger group of people. You need to somehow convince that the goal up there is the right one, and that we together need to make sure that we find the best way achieving that. But so, I think even if at that point, or even before, when I was playing basketball or whatever, that I had already quite a good, that I always acted in that way without consciously knowing it. It's just, was just natural. But I think it was always a little bit like that.
So what is your top 5 qualities for good leadership?
I think the first one is being authentic and walk the talk. I mean, do what you say, be authentic, then also, make sure to how should I say that? To include your team, but also include peers or whatever, and whatever you want to do, and also foster a kind of shape and foster a good culture, where people work together. I mean, also where ideally you can combine performance with fun, with good spirit, so that in the end you create an environment where people in the morning say, oh, cool, I go to the office today. And if a difficult project is coming across, that people take it as a nice, positive challenge to nail it together, to win it together, also to celebrate together. And of course, if then something is going wrong, then you have to take it and need to learn from it, stand up, and continue.
I don't know if those were 5, but it sounded really good.
I think it was 4, but should be fine.
and I was trying to write these down. So it's be authentic, be inclusive, foster a good culture, and it's sort of combining performance with fun. So it's winning together and nailing it together and celebrating together. Is that right?
And walk the talk,
and
because this I think is nearly the ultimate goal. I mean, you cannot ask your people doing things which you wouldn't do by yourself. I mean, this for me doesn't work. And it doesn't create trust. And then perhaps that's the 5th one, trust. I would say you need to trust. You need to foster an environment where people can trust. And when you have that, when you have a team where everyone trusts each other, I mean, you get away so many obstacles, and things are so much faster, and in the end also then really more joy for the people. So then trust is the 5th one.
Trust. That's a lovely list. So And you know, it's not always like that. There's so many challenges when you not only in leadership but working with a team. And I'd love to hear some of the challenges you face leading a team where there isn't trust or where someone's not performing, or I don't know. Why don't you share one of those, if you can, example or a story of a challenge you faced and how you dealt with it?
Yeah, I think life is full of challenges as well. And yeah, but of course, I mean, especially if you have a new team, a new environment, trust indeed is something what needs to grow. Then also, I'm really a believer that a diverse team is giving you the best performance. What is meaning really culture, from a culture background, diverse as well as age and experience. So really mix very young colleagues with senior ones, same as gender, of course. But this diverse group also sometimes gives you challenges because it's absolutely enriching to get all that different perspectives. But sometimes these different perspectives not necessarily always come along because, I mean, this is the nature. And this is something what at the beginning I found pretty tricky, that if you have such a team where you say, as a leader, I could work with everyone really well, but they amongst themselves sometimes struggled because they were so different. And then how to moderate it, because so that's really, really tricky. On the other hand, of course, I mean, you need to start coaching people and let's say encouraging one to put themselves in the shoes of the other party. So you can do a lot to get that spirit. Also, what's very important is giving them one goal together. I mean, saying whatever viewpoint you have, but the goal is up there on the right corner, and we all have to move there towards the right corner. This is very unifying or uniting, I would say. But I also had cases where in the end, then I decided that it will be better that you just separate people. So in the end, sometimes if, let's say, it's really be positive, trust, encourage, coach, but then there is a point where also you have to take a decision that it doesn't work out in that constellation. And then also it is, and this goes back to being authentic and in the end also do what you say, walk the talk. Then you also have to take a decision, and you have to say, okay, we don't continue, or we move someone. Also then for the sake of all the others who are then a part of such a difficult situation. And I made very, very positive experience with that even if you have to take a hard decision in one moment, if you meet people a year later or 2 years later, that in the end, I haven't met anyone who then said, finally being over that, saying it was a real issue, but it always turned out to be a move towards another right opportunity for these people.
Yeah. And lovely things, Monika. Everything, you know, when you talk about common purpose, that we have a common purpose, there's a common goal over there and how to get there. And also taking the difficult decision and having a difficult conversation. Again, I hear from you, those are things you have to do as a leader. But again, be authentic. Be honest with people about that. It could be a, you know, a lose-lose at the end. If you have a team member who's not performing, is you know, frustrating the whole team, and also they're in a difficult position. So at the end, it might work out for them to be in another place. But I think the strength is how you communicate that to them. And I always hear that from you. One of the nicest things I remember you told me years ago is about performance. And one of the feedbacks you gave to your team was, we don't have to be 100%. Do you remember this conversation? I'll
Not
tell you the
really,
whole thing.
actually.
I'll tell you the whole thing. And I can be happy with 80%, but it's at what cost? Because we're flying so fast, and so there's so many pressures on us. Sometimes if our best is only 80%, it's also good enough. But we have to look after ourselves. This is how I remember it. And I thought, wow, that's brilliant, in the sense that well-being is also important in the team. Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, I think it's what you tackle. I think it's two aspects. I mean, one is how can you manage your daily workload and what you have to do. And here let's say I also learned to really set priorities. And sometimes you just have to say it's not 80%, it's just 0%. I just don't do it because there are other things which are more important. So at some point you need to learn to really prioritize. And then of course there are a lot of cases where you have to say 80% or let's say a very good estimation is absolutely good enough. There are cases where you have to say it needs to be a 99.9%. And you need it's you need to learn also to distinguish.
Yeah.
How, let's say, to what level do I have to go for what occasion, and when do I have to be spot on? And if I do a presentation, when do I really have to perform at its best, and when 80% or even 60% is good enough? So I mean, I think this is very important that you can wisely judge that. Because, and this then leads me to the other aspect of the question. I mean, no matter what you do, and even if you say, and then I'm for sure one who also likes this kind of being challenged at work, but high performance always comes along with that. You have to make sure that you don't exhaust yourself to a way that you are not, let's say, the master of your day. So you need to make sure that you stay healthy, and also that you have moments to breathe. And this is why you need to make sure how you outweigh and where you really then do the 120%, and when you take a break.
Yeah. Beautifully said, because this is what we're always looking at, right? It's when to say no. You have to prioritize that. That's such a powerful word, when to say no, and knowing when to say no. When is it right for you to give up some things, delegate some things, say no to some things, but also look after your own well-being. And how do you do that with your team?
Yeah, I think, again, it's a little bit this kind of be a role model, do what you say. I for sure have quite a high expectation on performance. I mean, it's very clear. Of course, I want to reach my goal and even overachieve it. So this is something what also I make clear, but also I show by myself. On the other hand, also, and I mean, this is what, of course, it's also my job as a leader to have a dialogue with my team to see how they are doing, where are they struggling, and also, let's say, supporting them and coaching them in a way. If I have the feeling that they are overwhelmed, that they are completely, that I recognize that they need to take a break, because also as a leader, you need to show a certain level of reliability to your team. And if you run around like a headless chicken, because you are so driven, that immediately has an impact again on others. So I mean, it is in this leadership role, I think, crucial to show that you are the rock in the ocean, and you are reliable. And as soon as I see or I watch that someone is, and this easily can happen. I mean, we get every day, and times get more and more stressful. You are every day loaded with 5 other additional things. But then it's also very, very helpful if you have someone watching from the outside and having a good dialogue, saying, I think, what can we do, and also then really give a clear recommendation saying leave early, don't touch the PC on the weekend, because otherwise the problem is always getting worse and worse, because if the team doesn't, let's say if the team sees that the leader is that kind of struggling, the team immediately struggles as well, and then this is this kind of vicious cycle. What also on the other hand, you can get into a different in a different direction if you manage yourself. So I think really, and this is also something what I had to learn, and I had to work a lot on myself to reach that state of being balanced and already taking countermeasures before I recognize I start to be on the edge.
Yeah.
And that of course needs some experience. Also, it needs a lot of self-discipline. So this is, if you ask me where did I work most on, I had to work most on myself, on this inner, let's say, inner perception, and how to manage that and how to keep myself balanced.
Yeah, that's very true. Monika, our time has rushed by, but I'm trying to see which question I'd like to ask you last. There's so many. Your role as a woman leader. You're also a role model as a woman leader in a time where we still don't have enough women leaders, and you role model that. Do you have a message or something for other women leaders out there who look maybe at you and aspire to become you? What would you advise them?
Yeah, I mean, yes, I'm a woman, and yes, I'm a leader. I'm not really such a fan of this women leader, because I'm a leader, and really it is that, yeah, I think we need to look at that perspective. We need to broaden that, and I fully agree with you. There are not enough women on that leadership position. I would also say there are too much stereotype leaders on the male side, where also even within that group you could have diversity. Or then culturally, if you look into, let's say, international companies being headquartered in the US or in Germany, normally you also see that then you have an overlap of these kind of nationalities. So indeed, I think diversity is key, but I would absolutely not see it just on that gender scale. And this is also what I really would encourage other women. I mean, be confident, and also be courageous, and try things, and step even over your own restrictions.
Yeah.
I mean, I was very lucky that in my career, I had several people pushing me and convincing me to take another step where I was not really sure if I should do it, or if I want to do it, or if I can do it. I mean, also with my, let's say, the last role, I really needed some support. And then I took the challenge, but also I knew that it's in a good environment. So take the challenge. And this is something where I say, in the end, it's about performance. And diversity is important, because in the end, there are a lot of studies out there that diverse teams can reach better results. So really use yourself as also being part of that kind of making the team or your environment more diverse, but also speak up, share your opinion, and then make your way. And if you have the feeling you are completely stuck somewhere, I mean, you are the master of your life. Take a decision and then go somewhere else. So, yeah. So obviously, but this recommendation I would give any leader. So it's
yeah,
not so specific, I would say, towards
Yeah. And you also mentioned you had help along the way. You had like an ally there. I don't know, was it a mentor, an ally? But I think that in any aspect of our life, it's not just in management or leadership. You know, you might remember that one school teacher who was the one who believed in you and how you excel in that. Um, who is that person for you? Who is the person who believes in you?
I really have to say it's not that one person, because I was obviously lucky, but I think also I was consciously, I was always good in building networks, and by that, actually, it came when I started my career, but actually in every role I took, I had a certain environment and I had people. Nowadays, you would perhaps call them mentor. At that point, it was just, I mean, a kind of a bond which was there where I could have some discussions.
Yeah.
So throughout my career, indeed, it was more than one person. And also the interesting thing is that it's, I mean, with some I still have contact, with others not. So it's also this kind of, it's a bond for a certain time. And this is
Mm.
something where I think it's extremely helpful, especially if this bond is created naturally. So really by, let's say, and how does it work? I mean, be open and try to get to know people in your environment, be interested in what others do, and usually out of that kind of conversations, I would say such bonds are arising. And of course, this is very helpful, and this goes along then if you're a leader. um, it's the same way. I mean, it's upwards
Yeah.
on your peer community, but of course also it is in your team or even in your private life to some people that you can have a real impact on someone's life if you be such a kind of reliable, reliable source of comfort or support or being a sparring partner. So very, very enlightening for yourself, but also really support for others. And this also, if we now talk about what would I recommend women, also there, be open and also, let's say, try to get such kind of connections.
Yeah. Very nice. Very, very useful advice. Two last short questions. One is, what advice would you give your younger self just starting in the world of work? What would you tell yourself?
I would say question yourself not so much, because you can do much more than you think you can do.
Mm.
And don't measure yourself so hard with your own measurement. So I think I I always was the hardest one, giving me some critics or whatever. And yeah.
Okay. And you get to ask the next person we interview a question. What would your question to them be?
Hmm. That's a good one. That's a good one. I mean, I think one of the very first questions you asked me about this, when did it start? Did it start when you were 5 years old, or so? How did that, let's say, evolvement take place that you are where you are?
Yeah. So is the question, where did it start, like that?
Yeah, I mean, how? No, yeah, not really. When did it start, and how then did it evolve? So how
Okay.
how was the journey
Mm.
until let's say the level you now have reached?
Oh, okay,
And
I like
why
that
and why
question.
did it go and why did it go like that?
Yeah, good question. Monica, thank you. Do you have a question that you want to ask me or anything you want to add before we end?
No, actually.
Well, this was a lot of fun. And you gave us such beautiful tips and advice. I really, really appreciate it. And excited about the rest of your journey. Thank you.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I'm curious what the rest of the journey will be.
How do you think the rest of the journey will be?
To be honest, this is also something what I learned. At the very beginning, I always had a master plan, and what I thought this is what I will do next. And then it always came different because the environment is changing. So I have to say, I now started just as of January with a new role, forming a new team. So I have some work to do there. And then, to be honest, it's a little bit that I say, I mean, you need to be open, and I am open and interested. And then I wanna have impact. I wanna move things forward, and I wanna do cool things and have fun at work. And whatever is coming along the way, which is then giving me a good feeling that I can have that, I would think about it.
Yeah, I love that. I can see that image. Thank you, Monika. Wishing you all the best as you continue your journey.